no man walks in the same river twice. The man is not the same and the river is not the same. No way. Are you going to be that version of you? And I tell my clients this. I'm like, that version of you doesn't exist. The version of you last year doesn't. The version of me from last year does not exist. The version of me from 2 years ago does not. You have to take everything that you've learned and keep applying.
Best life by you, yeah, we leveling up. Strong body, clear mind, fill your cup. From the gym to the plate, you know what to do. It's your life, your health. Best life by you.
Hey everyone, welcome to Best Life by You, the podcast dedicated to helping you overcome challenges around nutrition, mindset, training, relationships, and all of the above. Today, we have a super awesome guest with us. But before we introduce him, celebrations are in order, as today is Best Life by You's 50th episode. So round of applause. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I want to take a moment to thank everybody who has subscribed, listened, and been there from the beginning. And I'm excited to see where the show continues to lead us. Anyway, back to our spectacular guest. I'd love everyone to welcome Troy Szymanski. So what's up, Troy? We had a whole glitch situation going on, but now we're finally here.
We did. Technology is a powerful tool in overcoming the hiccups that happen as part of the skill of learning how to use it. So
absolutely. So I'm with you on that. So anyway, everyone, I'm going to get into who Troy is. So Troy's an athlete and entrepreneur who has spent his whole life being curious about everything. From playing organized sports to teaching fitness classes and running his business, he finds joy in learning everything he can and sharing that with others. And a little backstory for all of you, because people like to know how we got connected. So Troy and I met back in 2023 at a music festival. And after having tons of fun that evening, we stayed in touch. From the moment I met him, I knew there was something special about him and that he had a big purpose here on earth. Even though he has yet to visit New York, which I let slide, I knew he would bring tremendous value and wisdom to our podcast. So you think that was a solid introduction? I'd say so.
Absolutely.
10 out of 10. 10
Wouldn't have done it
right?
different.
Perfect. So just for everybody to get to know, because I've learned about you and I'm excited to know and learn more about you, I'd love for you to share about who you are, what you are proud to be doing at this current moment in 2026, and how that version of you today was built.
Absolutely. What a lead in.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I was born and grew up in Texas, moved to Oklahoma when I was about 12. So my formidable years, I kind of think, were split between Texas and Oklahoma. After I graduated high school in Oklahoma, I went back to Texas, went to UT in Austin to get my degree. There was a lot of finding myself that happened there, in the sense that I changed my major 5 times in the first 5 semesters. And so what that means was it was a lot of like, okay, how am I going to change the fallback was I was pre-med. And so the idea was, okay, the fallback is what you do if you don't become a doctor. It took until the 5th time for me to realize, oh, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to start a business. I want to bring something to life and then manage it. And so that's what I did. I got my degree in computer science. And then a few years after that, I realized, this path is going to take a different direction than I expected. So I ended up moving to Denver at the same time that I started my new company. So don't need to get super into specifics of what I do. It's very software based. It's financial. It's in investments. And so it's, I love talking about it, but it's very, and there will be overlaps, I think, between the way I approach that, the way the way we talk about health. But my best life ended up following that urge, that pull that I had to go do something different than what I thought I was going to do for the first 20 years of my life. And the last 10 has been phenomenal. So that took me to Denver the whole time. Super. I played every sport. I only stopped playing sports whenever they would line up with other sports. So I remember the last soccer practice I ever went to was I had to pick between soccer or baseball. And soccer practices were less frequent, so I picked soccer. And that was the day that they hit water balloons at baseball. And I said, I never want to miss that. And so not only did we never hit water balloons ever again, but So I missed that. I never played
Love
soccer
it.
beyond that point. So that was when I was like
Okay.
6 years old. And then beyond, in high school, it was baseball, baseball in the spring. Um, I ran cross country in the fall. I played football in the fall. But it was a lot of, curiosity, everything. I was the guy who marched the halftime show in his football uniform because I played trumpet in the band too. So it was all super connected. And that's, I think, done me well. There are things I learned about competitiveness and things through that process that now I'm starting to realize, oh, I was either taught right and I'm glad, or I was taught wrong. And I'm so glad to see the difference now as I'm changing my relationship with fitness and stuff. But no, yeah, I think did that answer your question? That's just
I just want you to keep going. I'm just funny. I just like, no, just keep talking. Entertain me. Like I will say everything you've done, I think we are similar in that sense.
Mhm.
That is why we connect really well, because I am very much a go-getter, and uh, I'm a huge woman of faith. And I do believe, God's given so many opportunities and so many passions. And I did theater and sports when I was younger. I did Broadway camps. I wanted to be on Broadway. I did
Yes.
commercials. I did all these things like when I was younger. I wanted to try everything and just become the best at everything so that I can prove to myself that,
Yes.
why not? Why not? And I feel like that I'm getting that sense from you as well, of you doing all these things. And now looking back now, do you feel like there was any part of you that enjoyed one aspect more than the other, or that had any time struggling through balancing all of that?
Yeah, so there were a few things that stand out, a few like, forks in the road, there's that quote, it's easy to connect the dots looking back, but in the moment it's like there's so many
Yeah.
options.
What's going
Uh,
on?
One
Yeah.
of the things that stood out to me was I too had that like, in that those college years I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And one of the things that
Yeah.
so my senior year of high school, again, I did everything. Senior year of high school, I was in the musical, and I had one of the lead parts because they were like, we need more guys, and I was like, I can do it. Well, afterwards, it was a lot of fun to be a lead in that. And I thought, if I practice a bit, I have this musical experience in the past. I think I have a pretty good ear. Um, what if I pursued that? And so I practiced a bunch, um, like my tools. Like if I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to hire, if someone's going to hire
Mhm.
me to play a role,
Yeah.
what do I what can I control about the things that I'm not good at and get better at that? And then, um, I was really interested in that for years and years. And the thing that stood out to me was, this was around the time I had first started at my first software company in a software role. And
Mm.
something stood out to me there is that I would work and 40, 45, 50 hours a week, I'd work and I'd be writing code. And then I would go home and the last thing I wanted to do was look at a computer. And so I never ended up doing any of these side projects that everybody recommends, especially for software, where it's like, hey, if I think that anytime you have a job, your job, no matter what it is to find a better job. Now, what that means is showing up for the job in a better way. You become a better employee that way, and you're aiming the whole time at whatever the better job is. Now, whether it's entrepreneurship, that's what it was for me, or whether it's
Mhm.
something else, it's always aim at that. Well, for software engineers, that was aim at side projects, or where you're going to show, flex your muscles, where you get to use tools that you're not using in your day to day, all that
Mhm.
stuff. Well, I'd get home and I'd be burnt out, so I wasn't doing side projects. But there were other people that I worked with, and they were passionate in a way that can only be described by passion, right? They would
Mhm.
work, and not only would they, they'd work and then I'd be leaving and they'd stay a couple hours later because they just wanted to fix this
Mhm.
one little thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they'd go home and work on a side project that they had had in their back of their mind all day. And, they're focusing on their work, and then they go home and do their passion project. And so I thought, wait a second. So I'm coding 40
Yeah.
hours a week. And then I get home and I'm exhausted and I never code again. These people, not only do they code at work 40 hours a week, they might code 60 hours a week. And not only that, but then they go home and
Yeah.
code for another 10 or 20, and
Mhm.
that compounds. And so I was thinking, okay, if you give me a task, I'm a junior engineer, it might take me a week to do that task. But that's a week of 40 hours. They spend 60 and it compounds. So not only could they maybe do it in 2 days instead of a week, so it takes them maybe 16 hours instead of 40, but I'm
Mhm.
spending 40, they're spending 60, 70, 80. And to me, it was like, oh, wait a second.
I get
That's
it.
going to keep
Yeah.
compounding the rest of my career. And so if I want to find something that I'm like that's what I'm after. And one of those
Yeah.
things, I was like, maybe the fact that I'm not fired up about this, I go home and I practice my singing, right? Like I practice, how can I sound better?
Yeah.
Um, and all of that shifted as soon as I found what my new the company that I started 7 years ago that has become what I consider to be my life's work. Um,
Hmm.
my first major, my first fallback was physics, and my thought was, oh, like
Oh
I
yeah.
switched
That's
off of that pretty quick because I was like, I love physics, but I don't like the idea I could spend my whole life working on a problem and when I die, not know if I was right or wrong. And so for me, the shift became
tough.
whenever I say this is my life's work, my thought is I could spend the rest of my life working on this, and not only will it have been fulfilling, but I will have the answers between now and then
Hmm.
that are enough to make me want to keep going, whether or not the world says I'm right. Right.
Hmm.
So that was the shit. And when I found what I was looking for, the thing that I thought was shiny that could be really cool, maybe go try to be famous, maybe go try to, be on Broadway. What I realized was, oh, the people that I had just compared myself to, the engineers, those people would say, I would say I can't compete with them because they have this compounding interest. And
Hmm.
people talk about going to New York and sleeping on friends' couches and waiting tables and all this stuff. My whole thought was I'll go up there, get a tech job, and then I'll just interview on the sidelines. Well, compare that to now.
Yeah.
I will sleep on the street to make this job work. And to me, it was like I will always lose to someone, even if I'm a better singer, even if I worked on those tools, I will
Yeah.
always lose to someone who's willing to go that extra little bit. And so for me, it was, oh, wait a
Okay.
second. I can put away all of that stuff. I've never looked back. As soon as I was like, no, 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 that's not my path. It's this. And then I started that business and I said, yes,
Yeah.
this is the thing I can do for 80, 100 hours a week that no one in
Yeah.
the world can compete with me at. I found
Yeah.
my thing. So, yeah.
I do believe, though, you can have multiple passions. I believe at different points of your life, because that was me when I was
Yes.
younger. I did the musicals, everything, commercials. I was doing 3 shows at a year, 3 shows at a time a year. And I lived and breathed it. Like I remember showing up when I was in Annie.
Yes.
I was Annie in 8th grade. I showed up. I had all my lines memorized for the script read through, for the read through. And people are like, this girl is so passionate about it. And for me, it was literally what I lived and breathed. And my passion shifted. Well, I played the scarecrow in 8th grade in the Wizard of Oz. I'm going to get to your point. I write it down so I don't forget. I played the scarecrow in the eighth grade in the Wizard of Oz because I just am not Dorothy material. I was scarecrow, Tin Man. Probably if I do it again, I'll be the lion because it's the comedic character, but never Dorothy. Never Dorothy. And I've accepted that's my fate. So, um, now I had hurt my knees so badly that I kept falling. I was so into character. I kept falling on the stage. And the director was like, we need to get you knee pads. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm indestructible. And then I had such bad knee pain and I was so young. So I went to a physical therapist and he was like, you need to start working out, like build the muscle around your knees. So when I joined Planet Fitness at 16 years old, I think it was. And I fell in love with that. I was like, wait, I can get stronger and build muscles and I feel so good. And that became my passion so much so that it's a driving why. Like I'm going to ask you what your why is in just a second. So start thinking of that. Let it marinate. But when I was when I was playing the scarecrow and I did that, when I turned when I was 21, I was the lead in a musical and it was my college production and I had to speak in English, not musical, a play. No, it was a musical. I had to speak in an English accent the whole time. As I was in that show, I did not want to memorize lines. I did not want to go to rehearsal. It could have been the environment too, because a lot of people are, and I'm not. I'm like, yay, everybody's talented. We're cool with this. Not everybody's talented, but like, no, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I just didn't fit necessarily with that crowd. Um, it was like the non-conventional crowd, and so for me, I was in a musical, and I lost my desire. I'm like, I don't want to memorize lines. I don't want to do this. I don't want to stand on the stage and do this. I love performing. I've always wanted to be on SNL because I love improv and doing crazy stuff. But at that moment, I remember finishing up the show and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this right now for the rest of my life. People are going to Broadway auditions, and I have a few friends who are on Broadway now. We're going to see one in a couple weeks. Who did that route. But for me, I was like, you know what? let me go to finish off English education because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I was going to go study in China. I was going to go teach English in China right after I graduated. That was my goal, to go teach in China, just take the plunge, do it. I had a room set up, I had a school set up, and everything set up. My parents and my boss at the time, they sent me down. They're like, you are not going to China. We will not see you ever again. You're going to die. I didn't say exactly like that, but like that was my thing. And so I got an ultimatum, and my mom's like, please just apply to one school. So I was like, fine, I'll apply to Binghamton. If I get the job there, if I get into their program and I get a scholarship, then I'll go to Binghamton. If I don't get all three, I'm not. And God laughed at my plans and said, you're going to Binghamton. So I went to Binghamton, pursued higher education, never did the China thing. And I had WeChat. I was starting to learn the language. Like I was trying to put myself out there. Because I love learning too. And I love Spanish. I like speak Spanish. I was trying to learn that Mandarin. So that was back after college. And then I went to graduate school, and I was like, I don't really want to do this. I'm doing this because I've been on my own since 17, and I need a free house. I need a free place to live. And this job gives me free housing because I'm trying to get through by myself. I've been doing it for 13 years on my own. And so at this point, but when I was in graduate school, I was just like, I really don't want to be doing this, but I love nutrition, and I love nutrition. And ever since my mom had cancer at 15, I talk about it in my book too, but like just so many people around, I was like, there has to be another way. No way can good people be getting this sick like that. It doesn't make sense. So at 15, I was like, there was something implanted in me. God's will was implanted in me to need to start to do my own research. So in graduate school, I did research. I did a publication for textbooks. Like I did research so I could learn how to properly research. And then that really stemmed my soul. And then I had gone through, I went through a really bad breakup in graduate school. And I was like, I needed to change my life around. I was like, something needs to shift. I'm going to learn Spanish. I'm going to go ahead and learn Spanish and be vegan. And I was like, I just want to do something. No, I didn't decide then and there. I read books first, and then I decided. I read books, educated myself, watched endless documentaries that I could access, but all these research books that doctors have everything out. How Not to Die by Dr. Greger. You have the China Study, which is known around medical schools, and then I started attending conferences, and I fell in love with helping people get healthier. And that was my thing, is like similar to you when you told me like you just want to give people not a shortcut, but if you have the answer, that's me. I'm like, okay, I'm not telling you to flip your world upside down, but we need fiber. Nobody's dying of a freaking protein deficiency. Everybody's struggling with colon cancer because of lack of fiber. And it drives me mad. And I get so passionate and so excited to help people that I'm just like, you can do this. And so my passion, I still love performing. I love this talk show. I love doing this and coaching. When I coach, I sing in the mic. I do all things like I just love performing and making people laugh. So it's integrated. But when you were talking about that, you were saying a few different passions, but the thing that you wouldn't mind doing 1 million hours a week and even, at this point be paid, but like unpaid, that is your passion. And it's so beautiful to be able to hear, like, you can have multiple passions. And if you are listening right now and you don't have a passion, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Look at something in your life that you would do for free. I helped one of my clients find a passion recently. She got laid off at work. And she was like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you like doing? She's like, I love music festivals. I'm like, would you ever volunteer at a music festival? And she's like, absolutely. I'm like, then look into something in that passion. So for you, it's really just like looking at what you can prioritize in your life. And you're such an ambitious person, and you're so good and driven and like willing to do it. So when you look at all of this, do you believe all of this stems from your intrinsic values that were put in you at a young age to do whatever? Like, where does one, you can add on to whatever I said, because I know I just rambled on, but please, like, I would love to talk about values too. So, and how that's ingrained in what you do in your everyday life.
So obviously I think the way obviously I think the way that I was raised definitely had something to do with this, but it's also, I everything that you said overlapped with this kind of idea. It was really big recently in the Olympics, and of course, it was the Winter Olympics, and
Hmm.
it was the Norwegians taking it, and everybody says, "How is this
Yeah.
tiny country in Europe crushing the world?" And
Yeah.
you could say, "Oh, well, it's just cross country skiing, and they're the only ones who use cross country skis to get to work." But the argument is different. That they're the other example of, there's this idea of like, okay, in America we have winners and losers, and so the participation trophies aren't useful. But that's not to say that, so they have, and I did a whole bunch of research about this again because I'm curious, but because there are so many things that it overlaps with, is that they did this research, and in the late 80s, they had a bad performance at the Olympics, and then they said, well, we're not going to fail this way whenever everyone shows up here. I think it was either
Yeah.
they performed badly at Lillehammer and wanted to do better next time, or they performed badly at the one before and they were going to host the next one, so they wanted to
Okay.
crush it at Lillehammer.
Yeah.
But essentially, what they did was they said, okay, we're going to adjust this whole thing and we're going to change that attention at the youth sports level, so they don't keep score until like 12 or 13. And you know, I think where this overlaps with what we've been talking about is the curiosity that I think that I was raised to have, but also the empowerment to chase those curiosities wherever they might go. Instead of like, okay, it's high school, pick one sport. It's high school, don't pick a sport, pick an instrument. Um, don't play any of the extracurriculars, you're going to be a doctor. Like any of those things, it's the narrowing, right? And there's this idea that, okay, well, if you weren't playing tennis when you could walk, or you weren't skiing but before you were running, or you
Mhm.
aren't playing chess by the time you're 6 years old, then you'll be behind. And that works. I just read a really great article, and I maybe I'll send it to you so you can put it in comments or something. I don't know if you do that,
Yeah.
but
I will. I do. I
in
do.
the caption. But it was this
Yeah.
article talking about how essentially that works when the variables are few. And so like there's this experiment where this guy put he said my three daughters are going to be the best, they're going to be women's grandmasters. My hypothesis is
Oh.
that if I raise them from a young age to be good at chess and be valued, they're going to climb to the top. Chess is one of the rare things where like the variables are very few. It's called like a clean, or a I forget the language that he used. It'll be in that article, but it's basically clean versus
Yeah.
dirty in terms of all of the extra things. And what they found was that that works, but what happens way more often if a kid is forced into a single sport early,
Yeah.
then much more likely than them becoming the world's best is they get burnt out. And that's not to say that kids who learn early that they want to do this thing, they
Hmm.
can't become the best. But the flip side would be, well, over there, think about Klabo, Johannes Haasfoot Klabo. What a name. J.H. Klabo, who wins I think it was 8 or something individual golds this time. He's got the most Winter Olympics medals, both in a single Olympics and all time. Like, he didn't start cross country skiing seriously until after this phase where he had tried all the sports. He tried soccer and baseball. And I don't know if they played baseball in Norway, but he tried all the team sports. And then eventually
Hmm.
it was like, well, you actually have some endurance. Have you tried these skis? So he put those on later. And then he was like, wow, I actually love this. And the curiosity he built by being interested in all these things and not having that curiosity stamped out ended up being
Yeah.
useful, because then you learn all of these different things. Maybe it's a team sport and you end up playing an individual one, or vice versa, whatever it is. As you're curious about all these things, if you don't pick something early and end up being wrong, if you have the ability to
Hmm.
change I
Yeah.
like this idea of nothing is unget outofable. Like,
Hmm.
nothing is unget
Yeah.
outofable. And I think we've talked about that a little bit in the past when we were talking.
Yeah.
It's like when you're
We
when you're
have.
making a decision, if you can pick to focus on tennis or focus on your love of sport, I
Yeah.
think the majority of the time, unless you know that you love tennis, and I mean, even that, committing yourself to it means that like that is the risk for burnout. Or it's like where you feel like you have to instead of like you want to, like play.
Yeah.
And so being able to pursue all of these different passions, I think the idea that you have to pick a passion is wrong, because you want all of these different passions. And even now, like every sport that I ever played, every job that I ever had, I taught cycling in college, and now I'm teaching like a strength-based reformer Pilates class. It's solid core.
Yeah. Solid core. I know solid core. I know
Unbelievable.
it.
Like
Yeah.
it's one of the best run fitness companies I've ever been a part of. But
Yeah.
but there's all these different things that you learn, and each of them makes me a better coach, because we have clients
Yeah.
come in now and I can say, a bit of advice from whenever I was, in football when I was growing up. They told us for a squat to keep your chest open instead of just leaning back. Look where the wall meets the ceiling. and keep your chin up. And then as you lower down, the weight is easier to stay back. So like that's a thing that
Yeah.
is something specific to the upbringing I had. And if I wasn't
Yeah.
curious about, oh, like I'm recently learning how to run longer, and this will be a
Yeah.
topic for later with athletics, but I'm learning
Yeah.
how to run for longer than 40 minutes at a time because I've recently learned that when I was growing up, I didn't have an aerobic base. I was just able to do everything brute force in, I played explosive sports, so everything was even when I ran cross country, I could do that all in my zone 5,
Yeah.
but I never
Yeah.
had it zone 2. So anyway, so it's just
Okay.
being curious about everything allows you to then make a choice later when you have the life experience to say, no, 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 I love this. But everything else led me to this point. I'm now better at this. I know why I love it. Like, I think if I was to go back to college now compared to when I did 10 years ago, now I would value the things I'm learning rather than just going for the experience and trying to find my way. And so I think there's definitely, yes, one passion is wrong. Even people who are passionate about seemingly one thing are probably passionate about all these other things. And those things
Yeah.
and not being forced to just pick one of them, I think are where the biggest gains in curiosity come from.
I have a few. Yeah. I'm listening and processing, right? And so we talk about all these passions. And I had been given the advice by somebody who's an elite coach who had said, jack of all trades, master of none. And you have to choose something you're the best at and be the best at that. And I sat with that for a while. And he told me that while I worked with his son and we had to sit down and he's like, well, where do you want to be? And I was like, well, I want more athletes. I want to be celebrity. He's like, what are you doing teaching? You and I had that conversation too. So I will give Troy some credit too. But we had that sit down conversation and he was like, what are you doing teaching? And I'm like, it's to pay bills. I live in Westchester on my own, no support. I have to have some sort of income. So
Yeah.
this for me, I believe because I'm a great nutritionist. I would say nutritionist on top, personal trainer second.
Yeah.
But people say they're like, no, just like dancing, singing, and acting, right? Acting, singing, dancing.
Yes.
I think looking at that, you can go through life becoming a master of so many different things that you can be that master. But for me, I struggled with it where I was like, I want to be the best dang
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah.
And I am. I'm truly a coach. And I also believe, though, this is something we're talking about, this being in our 30s. When I was 18 years old, I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I just knew I needed to get a job and live on my own and figure out my life.
Exactly.
So by the time I actually graduated, I'm like, oh, why did I get all this debt? Like, what did I do? Why did I do this? And for me, God had blessed me and put in my heart a very different path of helping people. And the way I speak to educate, to listen, and to help people. So when I talk as a nutritionist, I coach them. I'm like, this is why you're doing what you're doing. And we're going back to the why. Because again, we're talking about that. Don't skip over that. But the thing that I believe, and I could forget in the Bible if it's like in Corinthians, but it's just like a mashed up word. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And something that is so passionate to me is I didn't follow the traditional path to get here. Yet I believe in my bones and everything, I am headed in the direction I need to be in.
Yes.
And with you, even hearing you and your business, you figured out at a younger age, like doing that. I also changed my major 4 times. So in college, I was like, I want to do it. I want to do everything. Yeah, I was like, I want to do everything. I'm like, do I do psychology? Because I love mindset. I used to do suicidal ideations, talking. I had to be trained how to talk students out of suicide. And like, I can even talk about that because that was a lot for a 23, 24-year-old to have to do that. And find out kids passed away before their parents did out of college. I'm like, what? This is not the life I want to be in. But I was trained of how to talk to people and have sympathy, empathy. And so when it comes to that why, for me, I love seeing humans as like, I always see the best in people and I try to see the best in people, even if they've had the worst day and they're treating me poorly. Like, I want to make that person stay better because that also goes back to my values of my faith of like, I close my eyes and I'm like, Jesus, like guide me guide me how you would treat the situation. And sometimes it's literally like going, maybe giving my last dollar, giving whatever it is, like, because I do believe we're here to serve one another, serve God. And and people on this podcast know I'm a woman of faith. And it was just like the why that was put in me at such a young age that I couldn't ignore. So like I ask you, like, talk about your why.
Well,
like,
I have so many responses before I get to the
okay,
why.
go ahead.
So many
Why do you
responses
think
to what you just said.
think I right?
I don't know. So first off, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard a lot recently. Like I said, this could just be people, not wanting to take advice at face value. But I've heard a lot of people lately are saying, no, no, no. The full saying is jack of all trades, master of none,
Yeah.
but better than a master of one. And the idea, I think that connects to the second thing, which is if you had to know how it would be useful ahead of time, think of where creativity comes from. Oftentimes, creativity comes from new people to an industry that have not yet learned the norms and don't know that the rest of the industry thinks that that thing is impossible, right? So creativity comes from people new to the industry, or it comes from people who have built experience in other industries. And so they come in from other industries and say, I faced this problem in my last role. If you weren't so focused on coaching and teaching as an educational platform, and you didn't have the upbringing, and you didn't understand your why, like there's all these things that, yes, you can focus on one thing, but it's different to grow a tree tall than it is to send roots wide. And sending the roots and the curiosity and the passions, multiple, that you will have, ultimately, as you start seeing all those connections, you can't see the connections if you never learn what needs to be connected in the first place. So definitely another point in terms of learning all of the things. Closing yourself off just because you think I have to stay focused on this one. Let's see. Then you mentioned, a quote. So any fool can count the number of seeds in an apple, but only God can count the number of apples in a seed. If you are going to decide whether or not the tree is going to grow or whether it's even going to bear fruit before you plant the seed, then you've just locked yourself into making the future happen. And it's better to just plant a bunch of seeds and then see what grows and then nurture those trees. And then whenever it's producing, one seed is producing thousands of apples. The whole time, God knew that was part of it. And it took you to plant the seed to get there. This bridges really nicely into our conversation about why, because here I call it my crisis of motivation. I was sitting there and I had just I'd been saving money, not contributing to my 401k. I was just saving all of the extra money I was making because I knew at some point before I'm 55 and a half years old, I'm going to need this money because I'm going to start a business and I'm going to have to live off the savings. And so in that first 6 months, this is also one of my favorite curves. Like you start out in a place where you are uneducated optimistic. And that lines up with, so it's uneducated optimism, educated pessimism because you learn how hard it is, then educated optimism as you round the curve. But you start off with conscious incompetence. As you learn what there is to do, you learn the things you don't know. And the goal is to move from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. You have to try the whole time. And then as you get through it, you can become unconsciously competent, where you don't even have to think. That's where the mastery comes in. But essentially I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, it's been 6 months. I'm learning and I am consciously incompetent. I've learned that I don't know things. This is the educated pessimism. It's now I learned all of the things that I didn't know when I got the optimism to go into doing this. And I remember thinking to myself, I've been living off of the equivalent of $20,000 a year for the last 6 months. Why would I do anything hard? Ever. Why would I do hard things? Because at the time I was reading a lot of Stoicism, and the idea was, okay, well, if you're going to, if you want to have more, you should just want for less. Want fewer things that you don't have, and you'll be happier with what you do have. And that's great advice. But at the time, it wasn't helpful because I thought to myself, why would I even do this? And that was, ultimately was the thing that brought me back to God. It all connected in my head. I remember sitting there and thinking, there's this one verse, and it says, ask and it will be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be opened. And
just going to say that. I was literally just going to say.
At the time, that didn't make any sense to me. And it was cool that this happened 5, 6 years ago because now I like it. It truly connects with my why in a way that I don't think I would have understood. And so I thought to myself, well, okay, what if I just don't do this? What if I just want to be happy? What if I just go back and get a job? And the thought was, well, then you'll have to spend the rest of your life shaking your fist at the sky because there's this problem that you think you might know how to solve, but you couldn't solve it, so you stopped and now you're aware of it. I think that that order, ask, seek, knock, is very specific and intentional because my thought was always, why are you asking and then they give it to you? What are you looking for after you have it? You ask, you got it. You're seeking, looking for something, you're looking for more, and then you knock, the door is opened. Why is there a door? Why is the door
Yeah.
not the first? Why is it not seek, knock, ask? Like, look for the door, knock on the door, ask for something, right? And that's where I
Yeah.
realized it connects to you, the me shaking my fist at the sky because there's a problem I'm aware of in the world. That's where I realized what you do is you ask God, show me the problem you want me to focus on. At that point, there was also the shift in humility. I realized, oh, humility isn't pretending I don't have talents or skills or interests. Humility is realizing everyone has different talents and skills and interests, and that they're chasing theirs the same way I'm chasing mine. And so, ambition isn't something to apologize for. It's not something to pretend you don't have. Instead, you ask God, hey, show me the problem you put me here to solve. But that's not the end. That's the beginning. God, show me the problem. Because then instead of shaking my fist at the world, I say, that's an opportunity no one else sees. So then you move on to the next, seek. Because the first is, God, show me the problem. The second, seek the solution to the problem that you've taken on. So you start seeking the solution. And seeking the solution takes time. Like I said, this was 7 years ago. And I realized, okay, so it's not about being happy. It's not about being rich. It's about having a problem that I'm internally driven to solve. I'm seeking the solution. It's going to take some time. It's going to take technique, all that stuff. But that's also why it's not the end. Because if
Mhm.
I ask for the problem, then find the solution, and that's it, congratulations. Why do I need humility? I'm amazing. I just did all of this. So the third step is important because it's your job to ask God, show me the problem. Then you ask Him, help me find the solution. Then you knock on the door and you say, God, I've done all this work. I think I was looking at the right problem. I think I found a solution that can work. I need your help as I reach out to knock on the very physical, real, mental, spiritual, emotional barrier between bringing my solution to life and actually having it be useful. So you ask for the problem, seek the solution, and then knock
Mhm.
and have it come to life because the whole process was God and you were there, not being the main character in your story, but being a character in his. And that doesn't mean you're not a main character. It just means that it ties in with the humility. You're supposed to do the hard things because as you notice the things you're interested in, as you chase that interest, and as you bring something to life, the whole time you've got a teammate.
Wow. It's so, I'm speechless because it's very much aligned with what I believe in the fact like God, I also think God gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors. And I mean, depending on how you want to approach that, but thinking of all of this when I was younger, I'd gone through so much loss that it was hard for me to ask for help. I didn't ask anybody for help. Like I've never asked for help. I am like, I paid my college loans off 90K the past 10 years. I did all of that by myself. And I was like, I don't ask for people. When I was dying in mold and I was in and out of the hospital, I was like, it's fine. Don't worry about me. Like it's fine. How's the bachelor? Like I struggled so much that I would cry to myself at home and be like, why is it so hard for me to ask for help? And so I prayed and asked God, like, what show me like what is hurting in me or what is in me that like I just feel like I can help everybody else and I will help everybody else, but I can't. I like I struggle to accept things for myself. And even my 30th birthday, I was like, I had no vegan food. I paid for everybody. I was like, I don't care. It's just I just want everybody to have fun. And like I still struggle with it. And God has shifted my heart and still is shifting my heart to find people that one in a way know me and just help and just do it and are able to do that. But to say like to remind me like it's okay. You don't have to pay for a service, because I grew up, and I talked about this on another podcast with this girl who's amazing. Her name's Astra. And we had talked about how, one, our upbringing, where I feel like being of service, anybody could ask me to help, but like I have to earn it. Like I have to earn your help. And so again, it's been a prayer. It's been a struggle for me as a business owner too, that I just am like, nope, I'll pay the person to help me. I'll pay for this. I'll do this. I'll do this. And so I've wrestled with that in my faith, and I'm a devout. I will anything if like I have Jesus on my heart, and however he wants to direct me, like I trust the process. If things do not work out, it's okay. Like whatever happens, it's okay. But like going through that, I still wrestle with that of like, why is it so hard for me to ask people to help? Why is it so hard? And instead, I have a mentor of mine who had said to me, she's like, you're looking to ask the wrong people. She's like, why are you not asking God? Like, just say, God, please help me with this. God, please help me. Please provide people or guide me to people who will help me without me having to ask. And that's something like that was very mind blowing, I guess, per se for me. Because it's true. Like I journal everything, I write down everything. And so a lot of my prayers are, thank you, God. I start my day like, thank you, God, so much for the gift. Like, please guide me in how you want. And if I'm struggling, or you see that I'm struggling, asking for help, please connect me with somebody who will help and who will just naturally be able to ask me. And it's again, it's something I've wrestled with myself. It's just like making sure everybody under the sun is happy. And I don't care. I was like, my house could be on fire, and I'm like, I'll go change your tire. No problem.
Yeah.
I've struggled with that. Like I struggle with that. And so my thing is really trusting God in that seek part, or ask, right? The ask aspect, because I will do anything to help people and to help as much as I can. But that asking part that you highlighted is a struggle for me. And I mean, I don't want to go into struggles or any of that, but I kind of want to hear for you, like, is there something that you've wrestled with?
Yeah.
That, in your, or like, we could talk about that or just go into what I said. But I also, again, this is where I'm talking about me and people are learning about me on the podcast. It's a conversation. Like people have heard my whole story, the tornado story, the mold story. So talk to you. But I think it's good to also talk about like what these high end entrepreneurs who try so hard to do so much, like,
Yeah.
what do we struggle with on a daily basis? What are you struggling with? So yeah, feel free to piggyback off me.
I will start off. I like that you mentioned the help thing, because I remember the first thing I ever asked someone else to pray for me for. Like I grew up in a way where it seemed, and I was raised Catholic, and there were things
Yeah, me
about that.
too.
I always I
Me too.
understood, I understood, um, you know, I understood that God made me, and I understood who Jesus was. But the thing to me that never really connected was, um, until very recently, was the first thing that I asked for when I went to a church, and this is a year or two beyond my kind of realization of the ask, seek, knock. I went there and I was like, listen, I need help asking for help. I am at a point where I'm so used
Yeah.
to finding problems and then solving them and thinking, oh, yes, this was me, that the pride that I had in bringing the solution to life, it was like, well, if I couldn't do it, then I failed. And the difference being that, well, no, understand that to have humility is to be able to say, I am not where I want to be, and that's okay. I'm aiming there. And it's about finding those people who will help you go in that direction. I think it's, it ties to something else. I think that, you ask about struggles, stuff I'm going through now. I read a book. Robert Greene has a bunch of really, really good books. He did like the
Yeah.
27 strategies of war, 47 or 20, 40, I don't know the numbers, 47, 48 laws of power, like great, great books. And he wrote one called Mastery. And in it, they talk about, what does it take to become like a master in anything? And the commonality was like these masters all experienced extraordinary childhood trauma. Like you're talking orphans, you're talking
Mm.
people who had terrible relationships with their parents, you're to all of these things. You go down the list. And I remember at the time I was like, bummer. And this is so funny thinking back. I was like, bummer. Does that mean I can't be great because I have my parents and all my extended family, and I love them and they love me and I don't hate them all. Like, and you know, how many of today's best athletes, musicians, movie stars, celebrities, how many of today's most here, like up there, how many of those people are driven by a hole that a lot of us already have slightly more filled? Like, how many of those people are trying to fill something within themselves? And that outlet was, I remember an interview with Billie Eilish a number of years ago. It was like right after, you know, she's like 19 years old at the time, and she's just had her like second like triple platinum album. They're like, how's it feel to be on top of the world? And she's like, everybody's just so sad, man. And my thought in the moment was like, you've
Yeah,
just achieved what everyone's aiming
for
at.
that.
Is the
Yeah.
reason that the art is so high because even as you do it, it doesn't make you feel the way you expect it to. And so, you know, where I am now, what I'm, you know, I'm now 7, 8 years down the road on a very hard problem that I'm still, you know, committed to solving and still asking for help, getting better at asking for help, getting better at understanding how I'm not quite there yet, getting better at understanding where I need to work on rather than just shutting down and saying I'm good enough as I am. It just needs to happen. As I get better at understanding all of that, I realize that, oh, I am now in the place where when I read Mastery 10 years ago, I have now had the hardship that you like wouldn't ask for until the passion that you have for a thing leads you to go down a road where it becomes hard. And then you keep going because the
Yeah.
value is there. It's not the money, it's not the fame, it's because the value is intrinsic to what it is that you're doing. And here I am, and I'm looking back at the last 8 years, and it's like, you know, if someone was following my trek up this mountain on a GPS, they'd see that my dot hadn't moved very far. But that's because the GPS shows it on a map, and if I tell you where I've been, it's because I'm not on a hiking trail, I'm on a cliff face, and the cliff face is 1,000 feet high. And so I've been climbing up, but to the world, they might not see it as going up. And so I've been climbing up, and I realize now that, oh, you know, the benefit of this almost 10 years of struggle is in the absence of some unthinkable tragedy that I'm glad I haven't had to experience. I've now put in a lot of time and effort and struggle towards a thing that I am motivated to go after. And now looking back, it's like if I was gonna talk to college me, I don't know what I would say other than it's gonna get hard. Do it. Like it, yeah, you do love your parents. So spend time with them. Yeah, maybe you're not going to become insert famous tech entrepreneur level, but would he trade with you? And it gets to that level where I'm now like grateful to have the problems I'm aware of because I know about them, but also I've been working on myself through the whole time. And it's that um the confidence now that only 7 hard years of struggle could be like, yeah, but look how far you've come. Look how far up the cliff face you are now compared to where you started. If I knew that it was a cliff and not just an easy stroll up a mountain, would I have started? But then I start and I get there and I say it's one more obstacle, one more obstacle, one more obstacle. I look back, I see the road that was this slope at the beginning. Now I'm on this slope, and I didn't even realize until just a few days ago. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, I'd do it again. I have what it takes to get to my level of mastery, whatever that is. It's not my job to tell you how many apples there will be, but I'm planting the seeds.
Mhm. Yeah, I do believe where when that question you had said about I wrote down a few things. So trying to like grapple each point.
Yeah.
So the part about what we would say to our younger self, instead of necessarily a piece of advice that I would say to my younger self, and this is what I coach people on. I say, go find a picture of yourself from 10 years ago. And I actually had this on my 30th. I had me at different stages, pictures. And I say, look at that person and you tell them how great they're going to be. You tell them the amazing things. You don't tell them where you're going to be or what that. You just give them all the hope and excitement of how great their life is going to be, no matter the tragedy they go through, no matter what they go through. And when you start talking to that younger version of you, you start to develop this self-love again. Because why would you talk to 10-year-old Troy, 10-year-old Julia? Like, wow, you suck. Wow, you should have gotten here faster. Why did you not go down that path? Like, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
Why did you not, why did you say no to that job? Like, you wouldn't, you wouldn't talk to that person. You'd say, you're going to grow up to be somebody incredible. And more, the language becomes, or the language is focused about how you speak to that version of you, and start practicing that every day. Because the more confidence you develop, the greater you are going to be. It does develop that. And you have a lot of confidence. I mean, in a good way, right? Like, you have confidence. I have confidence. Why are you laughing? We both have, I would say we're both confident people, even if we don't necessarily believe it at times. But I do believe it's because we have missions, and we're driven to do not what necessarily we want to do, but what God has placed in our heart to do. And you had said a thing about motivation earlier. It's never about motivation. It's about building discipline. Motivation is like lotion. You got to keep reapplying it. It's discipline you're building. Like, it's one of those things that you're building that discipline over time, and you're becoming this practice of not giving up. It's just going to instill in you and future generations, like, you gotta keep pushing through no matter what comes your way.
Yeah.
And appreciate the journey. It's not about the end. It's about who you journey with, how you journey, how you get through that. And I just, there were so many things that, you thought about, but you addressed it all. It's not really much for me to touch on per se, but the fact that, it's going to look different for everybody. I know for me, 5 years ago, I would never have envisioned where I am today.
Yeah.
I would not, but I could not tell you, like, the people I work with, I'm like, that wouldn't even have been on my radar, but it was on God's. And to be able to, like, even for myself, God's timing is ever so perfect, because the moment I came on board with my client, he soared. And I do not take any credit. It's not me. But, like, just being part of a team and being able to be blessed to be part of a team to help see that happen is incredible. So I know there's I would say, like, just, the piece of advice you had said, I don't know, or if you want to pivot to sports, if you want to talk about that, but just like through your journey alone of what you did for your business, what is a piece of advice? Or we can talk about a health advice, right? Because you've had to maintain good health and good mindset,
Yes.
physical health
Yeah.
throughout all of this, that you can offer somebody who is also going on this path where they might be at the, not edge of a cliff, but they might be going up and being like, I don't know when this is over. Like, I just have to keep going. And I know that sounds cliche, just keep going. But any kind of advice you'd want to offer?
Absolutely. My favorite thing, especially at the beginning of a journey, is, and it's funny you talk about discipline versus motivation. You make an argument both of those lose to environment. You can make the argument that motivation,
True. It is
motivation,
true.
motivation makes you want to put on the lotion. Discipline
Makes you
is,
keep it on.
outward focus. That's the thing that you consistently put on lotion. But environment is having lotion to put it on in the first place. And
Mhm.
so it isn't just
Yep.
having a whether or not it's a network of people or a network of
Mhm.
thoughts and practices that you do that, like, when it's funny, every time you go to bed, I brush my teeth before I go to bed. The hurdle isn't very high, but I had
Mhm.
to build that process, and I hated it when I was 4. And so now it's like, how many things are you doing in your life where the environment, my toothbrush is next to my sink, is next to the discipline, I do it every night before I go to bed, is next to the motivation. I want to do this so that I'm healthy. And that starts with a little thing like that, but it expands to everything, I think. And what I would say is that we're always told, um, if a thing is worth doing, you should do it well, right? If you're going to do it once. And I think that's the wrong mindset. And specifically because I love this idea. Love this idea. I do this for myself now daily. I do it with work. I do it with fitness. I do it with everything. But what I would say to someone who's just starting or wants to figure out how to keep going, whether it be entrepreneurship or fitness or health or any of this stuff, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. So think about the example of brushing the teeth.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes. Think about the example of brushing your teeth. Sometimes I'll say, time to go to bed. I have to brush my teeth. That's going to take me 2 minutes. I have to stand at my sink, and that's 2 minutes that I can't be doom scrolling or watching a video or thinking about tomorrow or eating. And so I think to myself, well, maybe I'll just wait. If the expectation in me is if you're going to do something, do it right. And so brushing my teeth takes 2 minutes. The flip side is anything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
Mm.
It's better to brush your teeth for 10 seconds than to not brush your teeth. It's better to
Mhm.
brush your teeth for 10
Yep.
seconds than to stay up an extra 45 because you can't get off the couch to motivate yourself or discipline yourself to brush your teeth for the full 2 minutes because you were told to
I
do it
feel
right.
attacked.
I mean, a lot of this is stuff I
Yeah.
say to myself, right? It's
Yeah.
anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Yes, you have this goal, this system that you've built where you say, I want goals and systems are different. By the way, we can talk about that later if you want to. There's a lot on it. But essentially, systems thinking would say, okay, I have the system every single day. I sit down at the computer first thing in the day, I write 500 words.
Mhm.
Better than writing 500 words is writing five.
Mhm.
If the alternative is writing zero, right? So starting with that and understand, and this is something talk about in fitness too, is I used to teach cycling. And one of the things I would say, especially to my first timers or like my buddies in college who would take my class, I'd like take it off the mic. Hey, don't try to keep up with the person next to you
Mhm.
because if you burn yourself out in the first 6 minutes, then the next 44 minutes are going to be a waste of your time. You're going to hate it and you're never going to come back. And so my thing there is before you build this routine where you're working out multiple times a day, every day of the week, you have to have this appreciation for what it's doing for you and this enjoyment of it. So the first thing is the best thing. So showing up, doing it poorly until you're looking forward to going to the gym and being there for 30 minutes. It doesn't make sense to make the workout harder until you're going to the gym.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a month or 2 or 6. And then you say, you
Yep.
know what? I'm stronger than I was. What if I tried harder? What if I sweated more? What if I pushed for one more rep on each set? What if I
Mhm.
actually explored with what going to failure feels like? Until
Mhm.
you're at the point where you're like, yep, nope, motivation's there. I want to do it. Discipline's there. I go every day. The environment then will say, okay, well, do it poorly. What if you try one more rep and your form is bad? Okay, what if you try one more rep and you can make your form better than it was last time? Everything compounds, and so that's kind of a bridge. It touches on a lot of different things, but I think that increasing. This goes back to something I learned about. I mentioned earlier my high school. I learned the things I learned there and how to value them, and things I didn't. The thing I learned was that I had been playing all these punchy sports. My VO2 max was great. And then they asked me to come out and run cross country because we were doing off season running for baseball. And I was like, yeah, I'm not playing a sport. I'll do it. That whole time, okay, today's a long run day, run 12 miles. And I would try to run with the fastest guys in the group because it's social. We're supposed to be talking. They're running at conversation pace. I'm dying. So I would walk and I'd still run 12 miles. At the time, I wish I
Yeah.
had been taught your long run should basically be running for an hour and a half. If that means that I turn around at the 4 mile mark because I'm going to only finish 8 miles and they're coming up behind me having finished 12, that's what I should have done. But instead, I was 29 years old before I realized, wait a second, I never had an aerobic base because even the races we ran in high school for cross country were 5K. You can do that in less than 20 minutes. I was just in my zone 4. So I had a good time. But now what I've been doing is I've had to run embarrassingly slow to get to the point where I could run for 90 minutes without taking a walk break because my tendons and muscles needed to be building up. Do anything poorly? I've been running these at 14-minute miles. I can run a 5:30 mile, but only one of them. And then I'll be tired for 5 days. So for me, it was about building the consistency, run every day. How do you do that? It's running at slower than my walking pace because my body needs to learn the economy. And so I run embarrassingly slow. I'm doing it poorly because it's worth doing. And now here I am a year and a half into this. And I can actually start like I'll do a run and I'll use the same effort. My heart rate stays at the same level and I'll go further. And that only shows up once you show up enough to have enough time on feet to actually have the growth. But that works anywhere in any part of your life.
I I talk about that in my book. I mean, I don't think you read it yet, but
I'm
it's
partway
somewhere,
through it.
right? So, but in my book, I talk about and I actually had a post on this recently about your, if you're starting flossing, you're doing once a week. You're not doing 7 days a week. You're not doing 6 days a week. You're not doing that. You're doing one time a week. If you're going to, even my clients right now that I have, they're like, if they want to start a program and they're like, yeah, I haven't worked out in 6 months. Like, I'd like to do 4 days a week. I'm like, we're starting with one day a week, just one. And if you could do one day a week for 4 weeks, we'll add on a second week. We'll add on a second day. And if you could show me you could do that, we'll add on a third day. But no way are you starting with that because you will lose all drive
Yes.
to do it. You will lose all drive to do it.
That's showing up because past you or someone else in your life says you have to go do this, and showing it for past you or someone else in your life, that's an expectation of you. Again,
But
it's what we talked about. You can't see how tall the tree is going to be. That's how you get burnt out, because you picked a sport too early and didn't know what it took.
I've said this before. No man walks in the same river twice. The man is not the same and the river is not the same. No way are you going to be that version of you. And I tell my clients this. I'm like, that version of you doesn't exist. The version of you last year doesn't exist. The version of me from last year does not exist. Version of me from 2 years ago does not exist. Like, you have to take everything that you've learned and keep applying it. But also, that is where we tell people you need a good coach. You need a coach that's going to get you through it. I have mentors, I have coaches myself. Even though I know what I'm doing, I do believe there is a team that is needed to help you become the best version of you. And if you acquire, you go ahead and pick pieces and advice from them and things that to get to a point that you can coach yourself. And I like having mentors. I like having that just to bounce stuff. Like, I do investments in stocks, and I paid for a course. I have a mentor, a financial mentor. She's amazing. But I've learned all of that of how to like grow my money in also so many different ways, because that wasn't something I learned. And now that I'm good at it, I don't necessarily need to be talking to her, but like I'll check in with her and have that just for like some sort of accountability once a year. Hey, let's revisit the stocks here. What are your percentages in this? And like I'm able to say, oh, I have this, like this is what I'm doing right now. And I mean, there's so many different avenues we can go with this, but it's really about like, yes, surrounding yourself with good people. And I talk about that in my book, about your environment is everything. I have a little pyramid in my book. I don't know where it is. My book is not in this room, but I have a pyramid and I walk through how your environment is so crucial in how you succeed. But you are like the most five people you surround you're the most like the five people you surround yourself with. We know that. Or if you don't, now you do. Welcome. But there is a way. If you don't have the proper environment, that is where you get coaches. That is where you hire people, or you find people, you find mentors that can help you. Because I've had clients who are not in a healthy marriage, not with like their kids are a lot, they don't have healthy friends, that they go out and drink all the time, and like they need somebody to guide them. So that is where coach comes in. That is where you invest in it. And like, you are the best investment you are ever going to be in your life. That's facts. You are the best investment. You're going to be the best for your husband, for your wife, whoever that is in your family. You want to be the best for them. It's not, you want to be the best for yourself, but also continue to be that best version for them. So I know a lot of people listen who are married and whatnot, and they get to a point where they're like, oh yeah, we're just so used to each other. We're so content in that. It's like, but I do believe you still need to be growing and getting better, like to better yourself for you so that you could show up as the best person. That makes sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah. Oh, and it's more than just the network and the people. And sometimes there's very real limitations that people have where they actually can't really change their environment.
It's true. I've met them.
And where you start in that circumstance is you change where your head is. And there's so many good coaches, so many good podcasts out there. Today that you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. But what if you spend more time with some really, really good podcasts? What if you spend more time thinking the thoughts that the people you want to be like one day are already thinking? And it will rub off on you. And if you're spending more time
to say, no, go ahead. Go.
If you're spending time, not being grateful for the things that you have, that gratitude is really important in kind of everything. But like understanding that, I can't change that part of my life right now. You can start preparing for it by training your mind the same way you trained your muscles. Start thinking about things you haven't thought about before. Start considering things. Start, maybe you need motivation to try going without XYZ for a period of time. So you do a bunch of research until the point where it becomes more clear that you want what's on the other side of that. Like that's how you build up enough motivation to, okay, I want to be healthier. I think everything for me when it comes to healthy is about energy. And so I think it's more, and I don't mean it like woo woo. I mean literally energy. Your body needs fuel, and the energy that it is in it that you're putting into it starts as food. But then when you put in the fuel, how much energy can you produce when you move your body, just as an example. And then as you, I always like to think you're trading energy for strength. And the way that you do that is you work yourself really, really hard to control failure so that the next time you get there, you will have more energy because you produced more with the same level that you have. And so if you're starting a flywheel, think about a flywheel that just makes it better, better, better. Try to go to bed exhausted. So do enough, move your body that you're tired. And then that'll cause you to want to eat more. That's why they say if you're trying to lose weight, it's a lot better to start with walking than running, because running is more strenuous, might burn more calories, but if you're trying to control your eating also, you will feel hungrier. And so it's about energy.
Oh yeah, because it works in your carb source. You're burning through your carb sources rather than fat. It's the
Yes.
fat. It's the zones in the. Go ahead. I have so many things I want to touch on.
Exactly. Yeah. Then I'll wrap this up. We'll keep moving on.
No,
So
no,
you start with
okay.
you start with something that gives you that drains your energy, because then you'll get stronger. Then you start looking for ways to increase your energy by getting stronger in different ways. And so sometimes I love time restricted eating, because, and I always have a blanket with me, right? I've got a blanket on my lap, because what I've noticed is when I fast until the evening, I get cold.
You get cold.
Well, that's
Yep.
because you train your body to use your fat stores instead of the food that's in your stomach. If you go 18 hours between meals, you'll start feeling cold, and that's your body getting used to burning the fat stores it already has. So you can restrict calories to a point, but then you'll get fatigued and you won't be able to think. And then you have to be more focused on, okay, what calories are protein? What are carbs? What are the other, you mentioned the different fibers and stuff. I wait until everybody realizes there's 6 kinds of fibers and most of us are only eating 2, right? Like that's the kind of thing where as you need more energy, you will look for more energy. So there's all these things that you can do to make yourself stronger physically. You go to bed more tired. So you need to go to bed earlier to get enough sleep. And then when the sleep isn't enough, you have to change how you're eating, because you need fuel with better fuel. And so as you're trying to get more energy, it all feeds back where you do more work, you get more tired, you eat better food, you do more work, you get stronger the entire way. That's a flywheel that I hope everybody starts. How great would it be if everyone knows what their body can do at least once in their life? Because the closer you get to that, the more that you want from it. And as we age, we might not be able to do as much, but I know I'm going to run better times now than I ran when I was 18. And I know in 10 years, I'm going to be running, if not faster times, I will feel stronger because of the work that I'm now addicted to the work of, no, I want to be stronger. Whether or not I'm going to go win a race is not it for me. It's how can I have more energy and build that flywheel.
So thanks for sharing all of that. Like just about, I know fasting, I've actually spoken, there's a doctor I have coming on. Women, it's a little bit different, like fasting, just the science with that and cycling. But there are some people who swear by it, and that's totally fine. And I'm all for it and what you're consuming, but what you talk about is true, like for what you're doing right now for fasting. Oh my gosh, there's so many different things. So I was going to start with just you had talked about advice, right? Like you had talked about surrounding yourself with certain people. And something that I've learned, I've had David Atkins on here. I've had quite a few people who are speakers and are very much an influence in their community. And he and I had talked about this, that you need to not listen to people who are not in places that you don't want to be in. So listen to people's advice of places that you want to be in. Like, for example, for me, I have a mentor who's a multimillionaire. She runs a very successful dentistry business, and she's amazing of a woman. She travels all the time. She got married a little later, and she later than traditional, whatever that means. But her husband, they're both entrepreneurs. Her husband and child travel all the time, because she built that life. And that is, I would love that. I want that. I want that life where I can travel and have that family and be like, even for example, she's like, do you want to come to Switzerland with me next week? I'm like, oh, I have a bridal shower. Otherwise I would. But she's like, she literally is the woman to just, oh, I'm going to Coachella this weekend. I'm going here. Yeah, I have a house there. I have a house back and forth, house in Switzerland, house there. And this woman is the most giving. She's so loving. She's there as a mother. She's there as a wife. She runs a very successful business and she works 3 days a week, long days. And then that's it. And like for me, she has investments, things of that nature. And I'm like, I will listen to your advice because you are in a position I want to be in. When I'm 50,
Yes.
I want to be living that life.
Yes.
I want that life. And so I've been taking a lot of things, a lot of steps to get there. And I'm very, very, very blessed by God to be in a position where I have a couple celebrity clients, and my job besides coaching, everything's online. It's remote. It's beautiful. So like if I did want to travel, I just don't. But if I did, I'm in need of one. But if I did travel, it's like I can do it on the road, or like they'll FaceTime or we'll talk on FaceTime. And like I listen to her because I'm like, I want to be where she is. Yes. And same with what people of faith, like my friends who are married, they've been married 10 years. They are more in love than they've ever been. I'm going to listen to or guide marriage advice from a couple like that I can look up to, godly couple.
It's so important
because I still have a few more things, but
yeah. Just shortly on this, it's so important to take advice from people living the life you want to live.
Yes.
And whenever you're thinking about podcasts to listen to, stuff like that, take into account what I mentioned earlier about the people we think are living the lives we want to live, and think about, okay, well, if you were a celebrity, what would that mean? Like, there's this, how many celebrities like don't want to be famous? It's like they hate it because they can't go out to eat with their family and not be surrounded. Like they don't have privacy. The only thing money can't buy after you get to a certain point is privacy. And then it's like, geez. And so it's check in with the life that person is living and try to look past the things that we think are what we want. So if what we think we want are money, status, wealth, fame.
Yeah.
And those people have the same problems that we, if those people have the same problems that we do, then be really careful as you're looking for the podcast. Do I actually want that life? Because like you just said, this person has a life that you're building towards, and it's better to have that endpoint in mind.
It's not and people talk about it. Like I ask people all the time, like I have clients who are like, I want to hit, $500,000, half of this, half of this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want the financial freedom. Yeah. I don't know what that number looks like, but I know that I want with my family time to spend quality time with that person and with the child and be able to travel freely and have that. And then be also to love my work and love my job. And like, this is one woman that I've literally like, I love her and I love the way she is and she goes about life. And it's also like a kind of not care. She's so healthy. She works out all the time, but it's like kind of like she cares, but she doesn't. Oh, somebody's going to talk about me. Whatever. Like what's new about that? So, I want to backstep for a second. You had said something about your body and changing. I always say you cannot change this unless this changes. This is the first thing. Like even in my coaching program, I sit down and I have them fill out a why. Like what is that driving force? Is it your kids? Is it your partner? Is it you? Are you good? Like, and I tell people, I'm like, yeah, you might want to look hot for an ex, but that's not sustainable. Like if a person's sustainable,
I mean,
it's not sustainable. It could be a motivator, I guess, but okay.
Or it is sustainable, but where will you end up? You'll be the person who judges their value based on the X. Yes. And you don't want that, do you?
Yes. No. And that's exactly what I mean. But people, they get so stuck if it doesn't work for them in a certain amount of time. And I ask people this all the time too. I'm like, if people, because I work with some people who are overweight, right? And I say, I've had one client, I was talking about this. And I said, how long did it take you? Like, she's like, I used to be so fat. I'm like, how long did it take you? Like to your weight gain journey? Took about like probably 12 years. I'm like, so why then do you think in 3 months, you're going to just transform everything in 3 months? And I'm like, it's not, yes, if you put in a lot of work, you can start that transformation, 100% dedicate. But there's a lot to unpack because it's not just, oh, I'm eating this. There's a lot of emotional background stuff that goes into it that needs to be tended to first. So even me as a coach, I coach sustainable. I don't promise. I think it's such BS sometimes when programs are like, oh yeah, you'll lose like 30 pounds in 3 months and this. And I'm like, okay, but what are the actual odds of that actually happening? Because you've got to teach them, work on
Yes.
their lifestyle first. So that's a huge, like, for me as a coach, I focus on lifestyle habits. Okay, why don't we just focus on our water? Like my tracking app that I have, I'm like, water, daily reflection every day, and your steps. Cross those out
Yeah.
and start with that. So I know yeah, there's a lot of things that we could talk about. I couple more points, and then we'll just have to do another podcast episode. So
Definitely on for
I'd
it.
love to do that. So yeah, we'll do that for sure. So because it's you and I already have literally like 2 pages of notes, and I'm like, we have to talk about that. I want to talk about it. Now we have to.
There we go.
I want to talk about it. So
Yeah.
what I would love for you to do is really, I know that we talked about health. I know you talked about passion, and we can even talk about your like sports because you did play as an athlete. So
Yeah.
do you believe there was anything that you played like when you were younger that was driven in you as an athlete that you now, bring to today? Because you were playing so many sports. Was there anything your parents told
Yes.
you or your coaches
Yes.
told you?
Oh my gosh. Okay,
Go ahead.
so one of my biggest things, there's so many things. We will not cover them if it's all we talked about for the next 2 hours. We still wouldn't cover them all. I will rant to anybody that is in the room
Yeah.
with me, whether or not they want
Yeah.
to hear. Like for example, I'm watching a lot of, and they're kids. The college kids now I see, they are children. And
Decades.
I'm so both I'm so grateful for the upbringing I had, and what's the opposite of envy? What's the I feel
Excited?
no, the
Excited?
opposite. The opposite. Like
Opposite of,
I want them to have had what I had. It's the gratitude. It's
oh,
like not I'm envious of what they have that I don't. It's
not
I
resiliency. It's
and it's not
no.
pity either. That feels wrong too, but one of the things is always body language. Um, and
Yeah.
you see it whenever a wide receiver drops a pass and he hits himself on the head. Somewhere along the line, he learned this performative
Mhm.
self shame, basically, where he learned at some point that he had to show that he was frustrated with himself, because that meant, and I'm speculating here, that meant that when he got to the sideline, he was less likely to be chewed out by his coach. And so for me, it's the body language. If you learn the habit of when I hit a home run, I flip the bat like I love, I don't actually mind bat flipping and celebrating. But it gets to a line where if you don't go to first base because you just got walked and you won the game, but you didn't touch first because you were too busy celebrating, and then you got called out because you have to touch first base and you left the base path, so you're out now. Like that's the kind of, or when you drop the ball before you cross the end zone.
Mhm.
You drop the ball before you cross the end zone because you're ready to celebrate. Like those are the little things there where, and it ties to everything, where the things that I learned was keep a good attitude. Even when you're losing, it's
Yep.
not over yet. I just watched my whole family went to Texas Tech. Except for me. I'm the black sheep. But all of my
It's
whole
okay.
family.
I'm the black sheep
So
in my family.
we were watching the Texas Tech softball game a few days ago. Bottom of the seventh inning. Okay, that's like the ninth inning, but for softball,
Yeah.
they play 7 innings. Bottom of the seventh inning, they're losing. They're a national seed. They're supposed to be one of the favorites this year. They're losing 8-0, and there's 2 outs.
Mm.
They score 8 runs in the bottom of the seventh. The first time in 640, this was a stat they pulled up in the top of the eighth inning because it's extra innings. This is the first time in 640 tries that a team who was down 8 was, is fighting for the win. Now they
Mm.
did it. They allow 1 run in the ninth, and
Mm.
you've just thought it took us 6 innings to score 0 runs. It took us, how many outs is that? 7 times 3. Wait, how many outs is 7 innings? I know baseball is more, 7 times 3, 21 outs. It took 20 runs and we scored 0 runs. And then with 1 out remaining, we scored 8. They go down by 1, score 2 to win it, walk it off. Like that's the kind of resilience that is very, very hard to learn when you're down 8, but it's really easy to learn when you're up 6. No,
Yeah.
don't celebrate. Like discipline, you have a job to do. And so many of those things where it was, hey, do your job, focus. It's not don't celebrate. It's not don't have fun. It's understand that everything that you're doing, your body language, how you treat someone who just struck out, how you hope they treat you when you get back to the dugout, right? Like we're supposed to love our neighbor. It's not well, I'm not going to say anything to them because if I struck out, the last thing I want to do is talk to someone. It's no, imagine the best case scenario is when you're feeling down. What would you not ask someone else to do? Well, I wouldn't ask them to come over and put their hand on my back and talk me up for next time because the whole time I'd be disappointed with myself. No, it's, yeah, go over to them, do more for them, and say, "Hey, I'm here for you. This game is not coming down to you're out. We need you. We have 5 innings left. We have a job to do. There's 2 more quarters. We're going into the fourth quarter. We're going into the third period. We need to lock in. And at that point, it's something that you need those teammates, and that's why I think team sports are so great to play, even if you only play until you're 12, 13, to learn the value of body language and always continuing to try. But anyway, I could ramble, but that's the first thing that comes to mind.
The first thing. It's all great. I would say it's when I was hiring years ago, I would say you can always teach skill, you can't teach attitude. And it's so important to have people that have good sportsmanship, good attitude. I mean, I even watched Jalen, like the game I went to, the other team went, or I watched a video. This was it. It wasn't the game I was at. And the other team lost. And I think it was the champion. It was the championship. So duh. And so the other team lost. Everybody's out celebrating. Jalen's walking over, shaking every single guy's hand. I was like, that is a leader.
Yes.
That is why he's the captain. Why he's the captain.
And I think that you can't teach attitude, but you can learn it.
No. Yeah. If you're willing to learn it. Because some
yes,
people
you have to want it.
You have to want it. You have to want it because some people get very set in their ways because I've seen this firsthand multiple times, which is a story I'm not sharing on this podcast, but with certain women, that they get what they want with certain attitudes that they don't change it because they keep getting what they want with it. And I think that's even some celebrities. And I would say it's really about like, ask your friends, close friends, how they perceive you. Like, what are some things? And let that be something that if you struggle with self-confidence, or you're struggling with like your own mental health or just any of that, ask the people around how they view you. And they will give you an honest answer. And I would rather be viewed as positive, selfless, helpful, peppy, confident, like all the positive things. I want to be known as that person.
Yeah.
And I do believe that, attitude is so important where it's just like I think you and I are both like this, that you just want to see other people win. Like it might not be your time. And I've grappled with that. I've had a hard time, like even with my business and certain things recently. And I'm just like, it's not my time, but it's okay. Like it's not my time. It's okay though. Like, and I do believe as growing entrepreneurs, there's the fact that, or how you can be successful is by having that open mind that you can always continue to grow and you can always learn something new, right? Like you are open to that. And like, that's even for me being plant-based. I'm alone in my journey. I mean, I've made friends, but like God had pressed it on my heart to do this. And I'd questioned and grappled. And then like, I fell in love with it. I'm like, I love helping people be healthy. I've seen it firsthand with like clients and helping people had cancer. And I'm like, there is a way to help people. And so I think that's where I'm so passionate, but I also am the kind of person that's like, I will meet you where you're at and I will help you however you wish. Like just help whatever I can control in my hands. But yeah, there's been so many good things, but I'm going to wrap it up with one more question and then we will do another podcast, I promise. So how do you go about now living your best life?
You talked about aiming at or learning from people who are already living the life that you hope one day to live. And I think it's similar right now. It's more kind of, I've been so intentional for so long to build the life where I can put my focus where I want it. And so for me, it comes down to, remind me the phrasing of your question. I want to make sure I don't go on there's so many directions it could go. I want to make sure I don't tangent here as we're wrapping up.
That's okay. How do you go about living your best life today?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's focus on the things that you want to focus on while handling the things that you need to focus on. And the more that those circles overlap, right? Like if you're lucky enough to build that life where the Venn diagram of things you want to think about and things you have to think about is a circle, right?
Mhm.
Like I think
Yeah.
that's the goal, is that eventually I'm at the point where, people think that you're supposed to please others and serve God. And I think it's backwards. I think you serve others and
Please God.
that pleases God.
Yeah.
He wants to see us loving other people, and he wants us not to apologize for the things that we want, but to understand that the way you get there is by being of such value to other people that they want to be valuable to you. And so it's building that life where you focus on things that you can make an impact in and you serve
Yeah.
other people. And through that service, you are made better and you just want to do it more. And so I think to summarize it, it would be that.
Mm. It's perfect. Well, I appreciate everybody for listening, and we will, Troy and I will definitely do more episodes together because we could go off on a tangent. But I just want to thank everybody for listening today, and thank you so much, Troy, for being on here, and again for helping us make 50 episodes. Everybody, continue to keep living your best life, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Best Life by You podcast with yours truly. I hope you go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and stay up to date with all the latest information. You can also follow me on Instagram at Julia_BestLifeByYou for more humor, podcast information, and all the above. I hope to see you soon, and let's continue to keep living your best life.